Rodd Duff, your host.
And I'm producer Barbie.
And together,
we bring you our podcast,
Insights and Straight Talk. And with that, producer Barbie and I are out. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Insights and Straight Talk with Rodd Duff and producer Barbie. I'm Rodd Duff, and today we're going to do something a little different. Over the past several months, many of you have asked about my decision to run for City Commissioner, seat number 3 here in Mangum, Oklahoma. Rather than answer those questions like a one at a time kind of thing, I thought, you know what? It would be helpful to dedicate an entire episode to the topic. This conversation is not about telling anyone how to vote. It's not about criticizing other candidates, and it's not about political theater. Anyway, instead, today's discussion is about transparency. Who am I, right? What experiences have shaped my views? Why did I choose to make Mangum, Oklahoma my home? What have I learned during my years in business, in manufacturing, sales, and leadership? What have I learned during my time hosting Insights and Straight Talk? Writing for the Mangum Star News and becoming involved in community initiatives here in Southwest Oklahoma. We'll also ask about we'll talk about what a city commissioner actually does, how local government functions, how decisions are made, and why local civic participation matters regardless of your political affiliation. Whether you've lived in Mangum your entire life or arrived recently, as I did, local government affects all of us. Streets, infrastructure, public services, economic development, quality of life, and long-term planning all begin at the local level. My goal today is simply to share information, answer questions, and provide context about my background and my decision to seek public office. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us for a conversation about community, public service, the future of Mangum. This is Insights and Straight Talk. Let's get started here. I'm going to move a couple things around. Click that over there. Bring up our comments. We don't want to show that. Anyway, we'll show them coming up. See a couple of people are starting to trickle in here. I appreciate you guys being here. This is a show. I'm doing a town hall tonight. Somebody, a gentleman who's been in town a number of years, very active, and wants to be involved in the town becoming more so, right? Not different, just I think more directed. I don't believe there's a lot of direction right now. Anyway, it seems to me. But anyway, he's doing a town hall in town. I gave him a few numbers of people I know, and as far as other candidates and so forth. It doesn't look like there's going to be very many. Again, this was thrown together, it seems to me, at the last minute kind of thing. But there's probably going to be a couple of, like, maybe a county commissioner, and I'm going to be their city commissioner. And I have no idea what the attendance is going to be like. I'm going to break this down and get it over there. It looks like a few more people are popping in now. Appreciate you guys coming in. Enjoy the conversation. Please ask lots of questions. As I said in my opening comments, my opening monologue, this is not about telling you how to vote. anyone how to vote. This is not about criticizing other candidates or any kind of theater. This is just about transparency, which I think is extremely important, especially today, in today's world. You know, I've walked the streets and done a lot of door knocking. Still have a lot to go. Here's my little paraphernalia, so to speak. So I go and I knock on. There's about 1,400 households. Doesn't mean 1,400 voters. It's probably double, not quite double that. But, you know, a husband and wife, maybe an older sibling or something. But anyway, when I see them, and especially if I don't see them, if they don't happen to be in town, I give them this information pamphlet. You know, they call it a door knocker, I think is what the kind of term is, a little plastic bag, and leave it on their door. Reason being is because there's reasons. I'm not, there are people that get into public service for a lot of different reasons, let's just say. And some of those are like about a particular issue. It looks like we have about 150 people here. I appreciate you guys, folks coming in. I hope your coffee's warm and your questions are often. I do look forward to having those conversations. But as I was saying, transparency is what this episode is about. And the reason I said that, why that came to mind, is because as I was showing you door knocking and meeting people in town that I don't know, or seeing businesses and asking them what we can do, what's important to them. So many times, a couple things came up. So many times, I mean, a lot of things came up, but a couple of them were quite often. People, and not just here, they want more transparency, right? They want to see what's happening. You know, these decisions that are being made are affecting all of their lives. And one thing I always talk about is, and when you're here in a small town like this, the decisions that you're making are about people you know, that you see in the grocery store, in the aisles of the grocery store, or at the post office, or having lunch, you know, somewhere here in town. A lot of people are starting to come here and visit us at the library. I mean, there's a lot of people that come to the library, but specifically to have conversations not only about this election, but about some of the initiatives that we've started, some of the programs that we're continually working on as part of a rural regeneration initiative. You know, Mangum 2030. Really get excited about that. I've talked to a lot of, you know, we're also doing the conversations on Oklahoma. You know, that we have another series. There's 13 Voices of Mangum, which is the folks that have built this town, the generations of families, the new businesses, the new people moving into town. All of those voices talking about Mangum and where we have been. I mean, going back, we used to have a zoo here. I found all these things out. Looks like some people are starting to ask questions or make comments here. Good morning, everyone. Excited for this important conversation about Mangum's future. Great topic today. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. And as I was getting to the transparency was one of the things that continued to come up. How there hasn't been, and as I said, this isn't just Mangum. This is in general. You know, our founders created this country so that this country of the people, for the people, by the people. The only way we could do that is by participation or through participation. We've got a couple hundred people coming in now. Well, 157. Oh, as I was talking, 148. It's a little volatile right now, but keep coming in. Great questions. Daniel here says, happy Friday. Looking forward to hearing Rodd Duff's vision of Mangum in the community. So yeah, we'll start this conversation through transparency. The top, there's Daisy walking by. The importance of transparency in any form of government, in any part of life, really. But when people are making decisions that directly affect people's lives, when I was in Chicago, it was amongst millions and millions of people. Like I said earlier, here it's those decisions, those effects of your life are people that you see every day. That relationship is not one of a face on a screen. It's a relationship of flesh and blood, of people you see every day. Somebody that works on the home here, repairs a roof, coaches a little league game, or whatever the case may be. It's important because it's personal. And sometimes I think this town has really taught me so many things about how to look at the country through the lens of Mangum. And I use that as a metaphor as well as action. A metaphor meaning, I hear it all the time. Somebody in Virginia, talks to me and they're like, you were talking about blah blah blah, referring in regards to Mangum. But I see that here, and somebody in Chicago, same thing. Somebody out in California, in the watch parties. So yes, it is a metaphor for the whole country, and more focused down for rural America, and then and through the lens of my experiences here in Mangum, and it's kind of a neat little abstract. Wow, we've got over 600 people here now. Thank you all for being here. Hey, subscribe to the channel. Please like the episodes that you do enjoy. Watch more than one episode too, because there's a rhythm. There's kind of a vibe. Vibe, maybe not a great word there, but there's a rhythm to and arcs to these episodes and what we talk about. This is kind of stepping out in that I'm having a direct conversation with people that I hope to represent. But as I said in other times and in these times and on this show, no matter what happens on Tuesday. I don't have my clock on. Let me close this down a little bit because people are starting to come in. The election is on the 16th, which is Tuesday. This coming Tuesday. Early elections started yesterday, the 11th. Today's the 12th. If I'm correct, today is the 12th, so early start. I'm kind of off today. I apologize, everybody. I did something to my hamstring. I was working on the house and doing some things inside and out. And there's 700 people here. Thank you all for being here, folks. Because great questions coming in already. But the other thing that I heard in knocking a lot is people they want to see what's happening, the decisions that are made, and the justification of those decisions from our town council. But they also want to be heard. And these are not uncommon concerns or or issues from the electorate. These are not uncommon political issues. And then there's more extreme stuff where corruption, and there's a lot of other things that, but let's just focus on being seen, being heard, and also transparency. Those two subjects came up repeatedly at a far bigger pace. Well, and I think the next one would be in far bigger numbers than all the others, but fairly close. Were some of the stories that I heard about the zoo that was here, the water garden, the beautiful water gardens that used to be here in town. And the reason those come, and the train that went down one of the main streets here in the square, just carrying people, this small train carrying people around, just bits and stories, bits and pieces. But the reason that conversation was coming up was because we were talking about there's not so much for kids to do in this town. It's a concern of many of the parents, but also the parents of parents, grandparents, are not necessarily related, but just the next generation has that same concern because they've seen what used to be. And then the school's doing a lot, to add more, but from a community standpoint, from a town's responsibility, from a council that needs to provide for its population. That's something that they're not being heard about. And obviously this goes on for a long time, not just one cycle, right? It's got to be a long-term issue for it to be an issue in people's mind. Makes sense? The other thing is that the city council right now here in Mangum is pretty volatile. For years, and there's good and bad about this. For years and years and years, it was basically the same commissioners, mayor, and the same body that created a consistency, a congruency in what they were doing. And I guess over the last year and a half, couple of years, there's been a lot of volatility. Like, for instance, right now, we actually only have 2 commissioners out of the 4. And one that was elected more recently came and went. And then, there's just this non-connected, it's something you could only learn more about by being more involved, which in any way this election goes, if I'm elected, then obviously I'll be more, internally involved. And that would be a great source. That would be a great asset to really work on a lot of these programs, these initiatives, Mangum 2030, the Regeneration School Project, the Voices at the Table. These things need to get approval from public, from city governments. And what I was saying earlier is, as I've been getting involved in this election, it's kind of come back to be interesting to me that we've talked a lot about some of those initiatives with people that are running for governor, people that are running for Senate and House seats, both nationally and state, but and more and more and more. I have another one coming up here in I don't think he's put the schedule down, but he reached out to me this morning, and we should be having another conversation with another person running for office, obviously sooner than later, because the election is again on the 16th, not even half a week away. All we have is today, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. We have 5 days, and as I said before, early elections have already started yesterday. But I bring all that together because as I'm seeing what is possible in this town by a little bit, maybe just by a change of philosophies. There seems to be a want to change things in the old ways. In other words, we just need to get a brick and mortar business. Well, that has its issues. Here's what I want to accomplish if I'm elected as city commissioner. My whole goal is to be able to have revenue stream to the town so that the town can rebuild resources, rebuild infrastructure, add infrastructure. And there's only a couple ways to do that. Either you raise the taxes or add taxes or add this and that for a government to pull money from the population to then be able to return and, fix water things that need to be fixed, light things that need, electric things that need to be fixed, and, obviously roads, the infrastructure of the town. That is obviously every town's dilemma. It's just like a business. You got to have revenue coming in. Having the revenue, you got to have a product, right? In a town here, we've got to be able to find that revenue. So there's grants, and this town really lives a lot off grants. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. And it's good that it's there. But what we need to do is we need to look at creative ways at bringing more revenue into this town so that it can pay more bills, provide more services. And then what happens is you start building revenue streams from these other sources. What I can tell we're going to get into some of this conversation here pretty quick. We've got almost 1,000 people here. But at the end of the day, if you take one approach, you put more restriction on the people that those services are being created for, or being upgraded for, or being rebuilt for, or fixed for, and so forth and so on. That's the, you know what? I didn't even realize I didn't have my headphones on. That is the place where things happen. I just want to make sure my voice is good, and then I don't need to have them on, because I don't have a guest here today. All right, you should be good. Just to let me know, because it has happened in the past. If anybody would like to make a comment, I would greatly appreciate it. So let's get into some of these questions, folks. As we put here, first one we already talked about. Good morning, everyone. Excited for this important conversation about Mangum's future. And excuse me, a great topic today. Thank you. I appreciate that. From David, and again from Daniel. Happy Friday, everyone. I think we're going to get some good rain today. It's kind of a cool day. I'm going to go do some more door knocking after this is done, and before my town hall meeting that we have tonight at 6, which I've got to set up for, so it'll actually be before that. I told them I'd bring the camera and record it. But looking forward to hearing Rodd Duff's vision of Mangum and the community. Thank you for that, my friend. Okay, so Victoria, your experience in business and leadership seems very relevant to public service. I agree with that. Yeah. How do you plan to apply those skills to benefit the residents of Mangum? Okay, so I think having leadership and business as a background, building something, that's a great question. Apply those skills to benefit the rate. Well, I accredit my my past, my history, the things that I've done in life. Not that I'm the only one who's ever done things in life. A lot of other people have done a lot of other things, a lot more important things, and all of that. I'm just saying, drawing from that to answer Victoria's question here. I look at it as being an entrepreneur. Your mind needs to operate in a way that sees something that should or needs to be fixed, repaired, can be done less expensive, can be done and supplied better. You're constantly looking for ways to provide a product or service that has a market, right? That has a need. Similar to that, the people of Mangum are the product, right? And they have needs, and how those needs are met. There's many ways to skin a cat, as an old saying goes. Sorry, it's not a pretty visual, but I think you all have heard that term before. But then there's better ways, and then there's ways that you pull back the lens and you see other ways to solve that issue. And to me, the issue has this. The issue has, I mean, not loud. Yeah, I did that. The issue is this: if you're just taxing or adding cost to something, you're drawing that from a particular group, right? A source, and that's a limited customer base. And so, what you need to do is you need to pull that back a little bit more, and then say, okay, how can we bring additional revenue in without just simply taxing on people? Now, one thing that always gets said is we need more business in town and people. So I have a program, and I think it's referred to coming up here in a minute. Oh yeah, it is true. Now I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, it is 100% true. Joshua A. Parks, 6562. Maybe basically local. Yeah, we'll get into that very much so. So the way to do that, and here's the good side of being an entrepreneur, and coming up is a bad side of being an entrepreneur. So if you're pulling that back and you're not putting additional deficit or additional delinquency or additional stress upon that customer base or the population in town, you pull that back, you're able to bring in additional revenue by looking at what I call Mangum 2030, the 5 pillars. And those pillars are each one, well, first of all, the foundation of each pillar is the Regeneration School Project. It's education. But the 5 pillars involve several, the last one being metrics that we can follow. We're always seeing people move into town. A number of positive things that are going on. But the digital economy is something that we can start drawing revenue into while working with headhunters, people that place employment through remote. They specialize in remote work. There's nothing outside of the city limits. Basically, there's nothing for 25, 30 miles away, and bigger. It's a rural western Oklahoma, and so having that mindset from the past has enabled me, I believe, to create additional ways to solve an issue. That answer your question? All right, I want to get to this. I haven't talked about this in a while. It's very heart-wrenching. So Joshua, yes, you heard from somebody that I went bankrupt on over $1 million. Is that true? Yeah. So I started my company. I started working on my own in 2018, and I built up, from a sales organization, kept building and building and building, and then I bought a installation company, and added to that installation company. And this is in 2019. I'm sorry, 1989, I believe, is when I started my career. And then in 2019, actually 2018, I bought a company that was an installation company, installing equipment. And then I built onto that company for us to start making equipment. And we were up to about 35 employees plus working with people, outside contractors to build electrical boxes for us, different things. We had serial numbers. I've got equipment with serial numbers out there, which to me was kind of the highlight of, I don't know, crazy thing, but anyway. And in 2019, like within a year, I had an embezzlement. And at the time, the company was had revenues a little over $3 million, and an embezzlement of a little over $1 million. That was stolen from the company, and legal actions and all sorts of things that I fought through. And I'm sorry, 2014 is when I started the company. In 2019, I bought this other company. And then 2018, I bought this other company. In 2019, I had the embezzlement. And I fought that until 23. So I fought that for 4 years. We literally went Chapter 11, restructuring, and was paying back all that debt because it was right at the point where I had a lot of money out, and then I had a lot less money. And so trying to balance, if anybody knows construction and that kind of business, there's big money in, big money out, big money in, big money out. And that eventually collapsed. During that time, I had a motorcycle accident, and I spent 3 months in the hospital, and nobody did anything in the business. For 3 months, we went from like $100,000 a month to basically 14,000, 10,000. I mean, the sales folks it became a very difficult time for everybody involved, including the people that you're referring to here in your question. And so we were on 11 and repaying, and then it just, once I had that motorcycle accident, and a year later I had a stroke. I work every day to try and pull this stuff back so that I can someday repay people that I actually owe. And that means a lot to me because I'm 64 years old, just turned 64. I spent my entire, other than, a couple of, like I worked for Minolta at corporate, and then I worked for a family member for a little bit that I then started this business off of, And so when all that happened, then I also became unemployable because, I had a awesome reputation and still do, but then I also have this other side, this really bad situation. And someday before I leave this earth, I pray to have that behind me, and you can never make up for it, but you can do something about it. So Thank you for the question, Joshua. I appreciate that. Now, wow, we've already been going 40 minutes. I always think I have trouble when I don't have somebody else talking to me, and being able to have long form conversations. But this is going by pretty fast. And like I said, we've got 1,200 people in the audience, 1,263 in the audience right now. Thank you all for being here. Subscribe to the channel if you would, please. Like the episode if you do. And make comments in the comment section as well. So Mike, oh, cool last name. The Mangum 2030 Initiative. I knew I saw something. The Mangum 2030 Initiative sounds interesting. Could you share a few specific goals you hope to accomplish through that? Let me go back to my thing here. Hold on. Kind of not really a cheat sheet, but if you look here, so this is the Mangum 2030 project. And if anybody has their phone, you can scan that over here, scan that QR code, and that'll take you to the 13 voices of Mangum. But these 5 pillars, I was referring to them earlier, and basically, the first pillar is creating. Could you share a few specific goals? Creating that rural digital economy, meaning the ability to work from here for a company in Dallas, Texas, or in Chicago, Illinois, that's an accounting firm, or that marketing firm in Dallas, or a place somewhere across the world, halfway across the world, doing marketing or doing digital works, a number of different things that can be done through through remote work. So that's one goal that I have, is to create, and I've already got a number of people that I'm talking to, preparing this to be laid down. I just need to, after the election, I'll know which direction I'm going to be headed as far as, I mean, this isn't going to stop no matter what the decision is in the election. And just how to approach it, I think, is I've done the legwork. I've done the, I came to Mangum on purpose. I did a lot of research, did my homework. I saw the ability to create some pilot programs here in town, because it's so small. Because it's a smaller town, it's much more manageable and easier to manage. But then it's the county seat, so it's got, and along with the show, it's got a broader range of visibility and influence. So it makes the ability to scale that across rural America and then across America. Then there's a health initiative, which I'm already working with Total Fitness at Maryland. We've done a number of things already towards that. And then Major Josh, who's the assistant police chief here in town, already has a couple of programs, and we're looking to formalize that into initiatives that the schools are already working on. I've worked with Fitz Coulter. She's a nationally recognized fitness coach, and she started something in Georgia, I think it was. Georgia or Alabama? I think it's Georgia. And that health initiative was kindergartners, first graders running for an hour. Obviously, paces are different and so forth, as a first period type class. So there's different things that we're bringing together as a health initiative, because I met with the Oklahoma health department at a roundtable, actually right after I had the episode with Fitz, um, uh, uh, at a roundtable. And one of the biggest concerns, so it's not an aesthetics thing, obviously. I mean, that you get an aesthetic value out of it, obviously, but there's a heavy trip. There's an increasing trip report or trip analysis, and when older people trip and fall, they can break their hip. A lot of things become at risk. And I mean, their animals can trip them. I mean, so having some health infrastructure is good for not only the quality of life, but as well as the longevity of life, as well as the ability to have a healthy enough person so that you can help out your neighbor. That's another goal of the initiative of Mangum 2030. The youth civic leadership, voices at the table, is something that's already working on and works in kind of combination with the Regeneration School project, where we're putting a fifth core subject in the public school system. But really, this is about finding agency for teens and young adults, finding agency and how to be able to have communication with an adult and still being human. There's a lot of things that I'm impressed at here in town. I mean, kids will engage with you, and there's a maturity there that you don't see in other places, and that's a very impressive thing. That's one that's exciting and already got a really nice base to it. And then there's housing and inhalation, attracting people to buy homes in Mangum. There's a lot of attraction from Colorado, California, Arizona. I came from the Chicagoland area. I know another person who moved here recently from the Chicagoland area. And they opened an ice cream parlor here in town. Somebody moved here from Arizona, and they opened an Italian restaurant here in town. So we want to build on that by working with realtors, local realtors, to have ad programs or have marketing programs to go out and physically attract more people into town, other than this person knowing that person or people like me just doing blind research. So that's the other one. And then the Mangum Civic Index is something that the same assistant police chief worked with me on, and something I'm going to build up and work on a little bit more. Again, all of that has kind of been put not on hold, but on, okay, which direction are we going to head at these things from? And after the 16th, we'll know. So that's a few of the specific goals of the Mangum 2030 initiative. Thank you for that, Mike, by the way. Great question. What specific changes would you like to see in Mangum over the next 4 years? Well, all of those things right there. This is Mangum 2030. So basically 4 years from now. Great question, just to lean back in. What I would like to see is some things that are already starting to happen. But I mean, if we get 25 people, let's say, placed in rural jobs, they don't have to leave town. This also signals a message to the younger generation, that they start seeing things get built up, and start seeing things, start seeing the ability to work from the home they grew up in, from their home, from their hometown. If they so choose, not everybody may want to stay, and I believe most people do. But at the end of the day, in the next 4 years, like I said, 28 people now working full-time jobs, or maybe there's other opportunities as well. You don't have to there's people here that are working 12, 14 hours. I'm sorry, they're working 2 or 3 different jobs because it doesn't, they're still not able to meet their bills. And I know that ever since I went on Social Security in December this year. And so I'm on a fixed income, and that is a freaking challenge, folks. That's why I ask every once in a while if people can buy me a coffee, so to speak. If you go to Ko-Fi, it's like $5, a one-time thing, or you know what? I can actually show this. I'll show you my Ko-Fi. Look here. That's the Ko-Fi. Why is that cut off? So this is Ko-Fi. You see here, $5. You can do it monthly, or you can do it just a one-time off. But yeah, it's a real challenge when you're living on a fixed income to be able to have additional resources. One brings in more sales tax, income tax. So if you have 28 people, 28 new jobs, it's about $500,000 a year more spending within the community. The town has more access without putting additional burden on people. And on top of that, there's a thing coming up. There's a resolution on being voted for in this upcoming election to raise the minimum wage. And so I'm still really contemplating back and forth on that. Because I mean, right now, $7. See, minimum wage was never meant to be a working wage, and I don't know how that transition happened. Because for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? So when you put a burden on anything, it gets passed on, or it negatively affects. However, $7 an hour is still kind of a low number. And the thing is, that's a Mangum. In other words, I was talking to somebody in town, a large business in town, and he was telling me how certain areas, and I don't know if this is an Oklahoma thing or not, but certain areas, like that's the number. So the same job in Mangum that would get paid $7 an hour, if you went to Altus for the same job, is $10 an hour. And I don't know if that's a cost of living thing or where that came about. I just, again, one of these door knocking things where I've been visiting residents and businesses in town, I found that out. And I thought that was fascinating. But if you're working remote, you're now having an income outside of Mangum, so that realistically is going to be a much higher number, depending on the work, right? Depending on the job. So that's some of the things I'd like to see, is that revenue coming in. I'd like to see that Civic index, those numbers starting to show results, starting those numbers accumulating, because once we have success and show proof, right? Proof of service or proof of potential, then now it becomes a much more serious conversation at the state and then a national level, where these programs have proof, they have a metrics, and now they have legs. So that's what I'd like to see in the next 4 years, a setup to be able to start talking to governors and senators and so forth about some of these initiatives, and with bring in the receipts. Thank you very much, Lori. Tobias, how will you gather feedback from residents on important issues? A lot of that will be through this show. So there's only, if elected, the it's not complexity, but I will be talking a lot about the city's activity, the city's plans, as far as, there's meetings between the commissioners that, are not public, but everything else public is what I'll be doing a lot of. That's how I will be giving information, and also through the show, getting feedback from people that are here locally that are interested in this or that. And then I've already opened up this studio here, which is on the top floor of the city library, Margaret Carter Library, and inviting people to come in and give feedback and give suggestions and be heard. You know what? I may continue at some point doing a similar door knocking thing where, let's say I am commissioner, and a month from now I go out and talk to folks. I'm doing a town hall tonight, by the way. This kind of came together at the last minute. One of the citizens here in town put it together, and so I said absolutely, and am participating in it. How it goes, I have no idea at this point, but those kind of things are things I want to be able to get to a point where I'm having a cup of coffee every Friday from 7 to 10 or something like that, and inviting people to come in. Those are things that I very much want to do. If anybody knows me, and it's kind of obvious in what I do for a living now, but I'm very communicative. I very much I'm a very curious person, and so I want to find out what makes people tick, what people want and need and think, because it makes me have more ability to know. And that's just important in everyday life, much more every day in life, not to mention politics, right? All right, so Victoria did. What are your plans for attracting new businesses to Mangum? Well, there's that chicken or the egg thing. So right now, we need to pretty up the town for attracting certain people, our companies or businesses. We do have businesses coming into town, so that's right now. That's a standard of living or cost of operation thing. It's a much lower risk. Real estate here is much less expensive. Property taxes are much less expensive. On and on and on. The cost of living here is definitely much less expensive. And so there is that type of attraction. But then there's another type where if you want to attract other businesses, you need to have something that's attractive to them. And so a lot of people have talked about, well, we got to clean up the face of the square. We got to clean up, buildings and da 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 da. Can't do that until you can have the money to do that. Then the third thing is a lot of companies coming in, they want you to build the infrastructure for that new business. And then so you've got to invest in infrastructure for the business, and depending on what that business is, that could be for a small town like ours, a very difficult challenge. It could be a large amount of money, and then tax breaks for years, right? Coming in, that's kind of the way those negotiations typically go. So my thought is a bridge. I want to do two things here, and I'm going to announce one of them on this show live today. The digital economy, meaning remote jobs. And at the same time, I'm working on taking this. I talked to several people in town, and they used to have, sorry guys, I don't know what's going on. They used to have like quarterly meetings. People would come into town and they were given like regional leaders of actually in this case it's a religious, actually I can tell you, the First Methodist Church. Their leadership would come in. I think it was once a quarter, maybe it's twice a year or something like that. I don't know the specifics off the top of my head, but they could manage just there 400 people for that week long or weekend conference. Now there's another challenge in there in having the enough beds, enough hotel rooms and so forth. So there's some things that are challenged to be on that. As a matter of fact, I talk about this in the Mangum Star, this week's issue, today's issue, and so there's all of that. So rural digital economy, remote work. Then I want to start bringing in work breakouts, workshops, TED Talk kind of events, starting small at first, obviously, but for insights and straight talk, for different sessions on what we talk about, special guests, what we talk about. I mean, I'd love to see tens of thousands of people eventually coming for these week-long events. I mean, think about the Rattlesnake Derby, what the vibrance that does for just that weekend. But that impact is important to this town financially. Imagine if we did that once a quarter, starting, there was 40,000 people here each day over the weekend. Starting out small and building up. That would be the next step. That's bringing in more revenue into the town, which then can start upgrading its infrastructure. Because any large company that comes into town is going to need infrastructure built for them, built into the town. I mean, water, power, all those things that are already of interest now. They're old and need repair and need work, just like they always do, but you need maintenance to bring that up. So you put that big of a tax on it, a burden on it, by a large organization. Oh shoot, I did. I am having a funky day, folks. Hold on. Just wrap my head. Wow, you know what? I'm going without the head. I just wrap my chair. I got a brand new kind of chair here, different kind of chair, so I'm a little out of sorts. But so that's kind of a phasology, a phasing of how to get to large brick and mortar type companies. I think we don't have to go from 0 to 100. I think we could go 10, 20, 40 miles an hour and beyond. That's how I envision that. How would you improve communication between city leaders and residents? It's just being more transparent. And that's a hard question to answer until you see what the makeup. I see it from the audience now, and I know several people personally, or basically all of the people personally, but not this, just as a personal relationship, friendship, but not as a wow, we've hit an hour already, but not as this environment. So I would say the communication is it's the key to it all, and it's needed and wanted and desired in town. But until you see how that infrastructure is, how that internal makeup is, I can answer that question later, better later. All right, looks like we got a lot more. Randall, thank you for taking the time to explain your background and vision for Mangum. It's great to hear directly from a candidate in such an open discussion. I think it's important. There's even things that you aren't the proudest moments in your life, in your past. It's also great for me because I don't know where that conversation about the business stands in people's minds, and so it's great to discuss that and give your honest insight to it. So it's a two-way street. It's like Cindy Munson said, and she was on the show about 2-3 weeks ago. She said it's a two-way relationship. She goes, we're politicians. I did a little clip of this because there's a lot of, politicians are people too. When we have families, we have histories, and so that feedback back and forth is a two-way street, and it's excellent to have, and it's important to have. Thank you for that again, Randall. Thank you again, Mike. I appreciate the focus on transparency and accountability. Those qualities are so important in building trust between local government and community. Touche, absolutely. I think that we've gone further and further and further away from that. Not here, everywhere. All government, all communities. And within the community as well, the community within itself. Jeffrey, if elected, would you be first? What would be your first action as city commissioner? I talked about this actually with producer Barbie early on. Obviously, all of these things are important, and they're needing building onto. But then there's also other things that people have talked about where down certain streets, larger streets, there's people there's homes with young children, and people are going at a very aggressive speed, and then there's a couple of businesses that are off Lewis Tittle that also have some issues because they're so busy, they create potential traffic hazards. So those two things are small and important. But for instance, in the community where I've heard this in a couple of different locations, but a larger street, people are driving fast. It would be, I believe it would be a good thing to have just a speed bump through there, just to keep just to very softly keep the speed down, because in general people drive pretty casual here. It's funny how slow people, and at stop signs they linger. I've noticed that quite a bit. But then you see, and I've witnessed this where some of the complaints that people were talking about as far as our concerns, fast driving cars, they're usually cars that are a little more souped up, and I think people are doing it not because of anything other than they can take off and let loose. So it would be one of those two things to address. And then I may find walking in, if elected, walking into my first meeting and finding a whole nother set of issues that could be addressed or taken care of pretty quickly. Is this a Republican or Democrat run? I have no idea who this guy is. Frankie. Hey, Frankie. So I'm an independent. Because, and great point, by the way, he's making here, because this is a primary, I had to change my party affiliation to Republican, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to vote in this election. I could run, but I wouldn't be able to vote in it, because it's a primary. So Democrats only vote for Democrats, Republicans only vote for Republicans. And although I'm not running, I don't think that whatever affiliation matters in this position. I mean, I think it has a sum zero effect other than who you are as a person. But as far as the affiliation politically, I don't believe that I don't see how Commissioner C3 in this case, the affiliation of one party or the other has any bearing or balance onto the position itself. It seems to be, it's more of an accounting and business kind of seat or position than it would be a political position, which honestly more of them should be that way, really, realistically. I like how this discussion focuses on responsibility, planning, and listening to citizens. Those qualities are important for any local leader. Great comment. Thank you, Clive. We'll go right here to Amy. Hearing about voices at the table and 13 voices of Mangum. Yep. Shows the importance of including different perspectives. Good point. Absolutely. How can more citizens participate? This show is one area where I've started that moving along. As those initiatives start developing, I imagine the voices at the table and 13 voices of Mangum, I imagine that having a lot more accessibility and a lot more knowledge on it. So this is just one of those things that I think is just going to naturally grow. But as far as actual participation, hit me up on my YouTube or my Facebook or my Instagram. You can DM me or you can make a comment, and we can definitely make more ways for people to get involved in each of those initiatives. They're very important. All right. So, hey, look who we have here. Oh, this is interesting. So this is the sheriff. For those of you that may not be in town, but Sheriff Steve McMahon. The city is planning to add a fee to every electric meter, which would generate about $160,000 a year. Are there other ways to other ways maybe out there, free up budget or generate more revenue? Yeah, I mean that's the perfect question, and this is what I was talking about earlier, Steve, in that the problem. So that $160,000 a year, right, is just adding more burden onto an already burdened population. And yes, the cost of living here is lower, but it's also a town that's got 30, I think it's 38%, 33%. I got to go back and look at my notes, but people that live under the poverty line, and so it's challenging in my mind to not look at other ways to not just free up a budget. You can maybe approach things differently, and there's many ways to skin a cat, as I said earlier, right? But to generate more revenue is the specific reason why I created the Mangum 2030 initiative, and that is specifically to bring more revenue in town. And today, Steve, I don't know if you heard me earlier. But today I announced that I've already had conversations about doing workshops in town, having people come from across the West, from across the United States, someday across the world, coming to Insights and Straight Talk, into TED Talks, into listening to special guests, into getting more information. These are things that I've attended, many people have attended, but we could really build a nice little revenue stream, kind of a mini rattlesnake derby every quarter. And I think we may have chatted about that just a little bit, Steve. So I appreciate that question. And I think that we got everybody here. Let me go back to my notes. Let me do this. Let me do this. And I am going to, does anybody else have any additional questions for me at this point? We kind of went through a whole range of stuff. I thought that was quite positive, quite constructive. Appreciate you guys being here for me on this with me. So for now, as we wrap up today's conversation, I can tell you this. I want to thank you. I want to thank everyone who joined us, whether you agree with me, or whether you disagree with me, or you still haven't made up your mind. I appreciate your willingness to listen, to learn, and participate in the process. One of the lessons I've learned throughout my career is that healthy communities are built through engagement. They are built when people ask questions, seek information, attend meetings, volunteer, support local organizations, and take an active interest in the place they call home. That principle extends far beyond any single election. Long after campaigns end and votes are counted, communities continue the work of solving problems, creating opportunities, and building a future together. I encourage everyone watching to learn as much as possible about the issues facing Mangum. And I'm talking about Mangum right now because I'm hyper-focused on it, but this election, this primary is on the 16th, is across Oklahoma. Our primary is the June 16th. California just had one. Everybody has their primaries. So when I say this, the issues facing your communities, and review information from all the candidates, participate in public discussions, and make your voice heard through the democratic process. Early voting began yesterday, and election day, as I said, is on June 16th. So whatever your perspective may be, take the time to become informed and to participate. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. I'm Rodd Duff, host of Insights and Straight Talk with producer Barbie, empowering the great middle class, one conversation at a time. We'll see you next time, and I'm out.
Before you leave, if you'd like to watch another one of the podcasts, click the first link in the description. We love having you here, and we appreciate all your support.
And with that, producer Barbie and I are out.